This industry never stops evolving. If you think you've figured it out, you've already lost.
How do you single-handedly dive into entrepreneurship at the age of 21? Today's guest might have some suggestions to get you going. Welcome to the DesignRush podcast, where we bring you game changers and innovators who can help drive your business forward. I'm your host, Bianca Mayer, Senior Editor at DesignRush. Joining us is the founder of 428 Marketing, an agency known for its impeccable client relationships and expert knowledge in the fields of SEO and web design. Our guest always knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur, but how did he lead 428 Marketing to where it is today? Please welcome Daniel Segalo. Firstly, your undergrad and MBA were in finance, but you never really worked in that industry professionally. Instead, you chose to take a riskier path and open your first company at the impressive age of 21, I might add. What made you so certain that you wanted to pursue the entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, good question. So, I knew at a young age that I wanted to own my own business someday. I didn't really know when that would happen. And in college, actually for a little while, I had wanted to go to New York and become an investment banker. But I think it was my junior year, I had got an idea for a business that I really wanted to start. And so the idea was actually for basically to build a marketplace for college students to be able to buy and sell textbooks from each other. So rather than getting ripped off by the bookstore, I wanted to allow for, I think I had this, it was this one semester I had bought an economics textbook for, I think it was $390, one textbook. Wow. And so I never opened it. I went back to the bookstore at the end of the semester to sell it back. And it turned out they said, oh, sorry, it was a 3-ring binder textbook. And they said, oh, sorry, we won't repurchase that because it's a 3-ring binder. I was like, you sold it to me and I didn't open it. Oh, sorry. And it was that moment, I was like, something has to change here. So anyway, I devised this entire idea. And really, that had become kind of an obsession and this burning passion for me. I'd come up with the idea of allowing students to be able to buy and sell with each other. And in order for me to pursue that idea, what I actually did was I enrolled in grad school to give myself a longer runway because I had student loans at the time. And, had I not stayed in school, I actually would have ended up having to start paying on the loans. And so to get the startup off the ground, I was like, okay, I'm going to stick with this finance route and I'm going to keep going. So I would say the thing that actually really made me want to pursue it is just, I had this, for one, I really wanted to be a business owner someday. And I had this burning passion inside of me to really pursue this idea. And, I didn't have any kids. I didn't really have a house. I would say I didn't have debt, but I did have student loan debt at the time. And it kind of felt like the least risky time to start a business. So it kind of just really became that obsession I couldn't ignore.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that actually, and I think that was such a creative way. And also, not just that, but I think that must have filled a gap as well when you were doing that.
Yeah, it became a very complicated industry. I found out pretty quickly. It was a neat idea that it worked, but as a business, it was very hard to, I had a lot of college students that used it, but as a business, I learned really quickly about dollars and cents. So while I had a lot of people using the company, it ended up becoming something where I just could not make the margins work. So I was like, all right, the publishers control this industry and I'm going to go ahead and raise my white flag.
So, okay, can you tell us more about the journey from finance to opening 428 Marketing? And how was your background in finance contributed to your unique perspective on running an agency?
I knew I always wanted to be in business, and all of my mentors had said, if you want to be in business, make sure you do one of two things: either do finance or do accounting. So I hated accounting. So I was like, let's do finance. And while I was actually in my finance program, I really learned to love it. And before I had come up with that idea for my first business, I had actually intended on kind of moving to New York and doing the whole investment banking thing. I really enjoyed it. Well, I'm going to continue pursuing finance as my backup plan, in case, I was like, I was realistic. I was young and dumb, but I was realistic to know, okay, I'm 21. The odds of me actually being successful with this probably aren't super great. So I should probably have a backup plan. So anyway, finance was a bit of a means to an end. And I knew that if I ever, did fail, like I would always have a degree to fall back on and to get a job in finance. But yeah, thankfully though, marketing really actually took off for me, and it really, marketing was my passion from the start. It was something that I had wanted to do. I just didn't. I figured I'd figure that out in business ownership, and but anyway, there were, for finance, I would say that there are times when I find little things throughout any given day that like now that really go back to my financial education, whether it's forecasting growth or some type of money management. I do actually end up using it probably more often than I think I do. And I'd say more than anything though, understanding really how to do like just general cost benefit analysis, being able to understand how to make a decision utilizing opportunity cost, those kinds of things, which probably end up being a little bit more economics based rather than finance specific. But just knowing a couple of these things really help you make decisions on a day-to-day basis.
That's actually so incredible how you were able to correlate that. So okay, you said that you were always kind of passionate about marketing. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I would say marketing for me was something I felt like I'm a social person. So I had always, I have an analytical part of me, but as a social, I loved having friends. I loved hanging out with people. I felt like marketing was kind of like, I loved business, but marketing seemed to be more of like that social arm. So that I had learned, I watched TV commercials, and I would always pay attention to advertising. It was always just something that kind of popped out to me. And I had, I was pretty good at sales and marketing kind of go together. So it kind of became just a natural fit. It was like, I think I want to do marketing.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the beginning of 428 marketing looked like? I mean, did you start it off by yourself? Did you start outsourcing other team members then? I mean, what did that process look like for you?
Yeah, good question. So it actually started as a necessity for my first startup. So I had found myself in a position pretty quickly. So I had to teach myself to code in order to build a website for my startup. So I had raised a bunch of money from investors. I'd spent all of it to build out this super sophisticated marketplace website, and I launched it, and like day one, it was just the wrong product market fit. And I was like, oh, okay, crap. So I had, at the time I had enrolled into, or I had got accepted into this incubator, this business incubator, and they had really helped me kind of revise my strategy a little bit. And so I had pivoted my entire business to something completely different. So instead of a marketplace, it became something where we would actually, we created this process where I had college students that would go pick up people's books on campus. So it's kind of like the Uber for college textbooks. This was like long before Uber was ever a thing. But to get there, I had to create a website. I had no more money left, and I did not know a blessed thing about what it meant to code or anything. So I realized, all right, well, I can either teach myself to do this, or I can shut the company down and lose all my investors' money. So I was like, all right, I'm going to teach myself to code. And so what I did over the next few months was I locked myself in my room, and I mean, we're talking Friday nights, Saturday nights. I basically turned my entire social life off, and I dedicated for a large part of like probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 months, learning how to build websites, HTML, PHP, CSS. And then I quickly realized that, okay, WordPress is actually this amazing platform where you can build all these beautiful websites. So anyway, backing up, I was able to build my startup, my company's website. I ended up turning that into like my minimum viable product. And I ended up being able to like lengthen the runway by about 18 months by doing that. And through the process of building that website, I realized, man, I actually really love doing this. I loved writing marketing copy. I love the entire process of really figuring out how to advertise to specific demographics. And I'd say within a couple months after that, I had my startup wasn't really making me money to live on. So I started taking side projects to build websites. And I still remember the very first website that I ever built was for one of my buddies who owned an agency at the time. It was for his mom's nail salon, and he paid me $200 to do the website. I kid you not, it took me 100 hours.
Wow.
I made $2 an hour on that project, but it was an incredible learning experience. And then the next project, I think I did that one for like 400, and then the next one was 1,000. And pretty quickly I was like, dude, I really enjoy this, but I'm also realizing that a website doesn't really do much for a business if you can't get traffic to it. So and this is a funny thing, but the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google. So nobody will ever find it. So that's ultimately how I ended up getting into SEO and digital advertising, was to really get those websites that I was building to actually get found by people that were searching for them. And pretty quickly after I'd done a few websites, I was like, you know what? I think I have a much brighter future building out a marketing agency than I do pursuing this startup that I still had yet to make actual money from. I made all the money back to pay my investors back, but I wasn't making money for myself. And I was like, all right, let's do the marketing agency instead.
That sounds so many learning opportunities that you had there. And I think you're really lucky to have had those, actually. And I have to commend you for actually going for it and doing the thing, especially at such a young age. I mean, you were you still about 21 at this age, right?
By the time I had started the marketing agency, I think I was actually 23 or 24. So I had tried getting oh my gosh, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing.
But you did it anyway, and I have to say that's super inspiring. I'm sure to many of the other listeners that are going to be, checking into this as well. So, okay, just getting back to your marketing agency that you started up in, okay? How did you find clients or build up a solid client list? And how long would you say did it take you to really get to a place where you were like, okay, I'm good. I need to start outsourcing people to help me take on some of the work?
Yeah, good question. So for me, it took me about I think about 2 years to really get to the place where I was bringing people on. But, it really started with just my contact list. And, I say that knowing that not everyone doesn't know someone, but what I will say is you probably know more people than you think. So, I started with my contacts, my friends, my family, and what I did was, I would say this is probably one of the best decisions that I made, was I formed strategic partnerships with a lot of people in my circle. So I said, find me a client. So anyone who owns a small business. At the time, I was doing a lot of church marketing. So I was building websites for churches and Christian ministries and stuff. And so what I had done was, every single website that I built, I would say, hey, if you find me somebody, I'll give you a percentage of what I sell. And that actually turned into a lot of business for me. I had one guy in particular, his name was David. I credit him for really helping me get my career started. He was a pastor, and he had his own Christian ministry. So I had built his website, and he was one of the guys that I kind of created that partnership with, that he sent me. I mean, I think he sent me probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 projects. And so it was a really good little partnership for us. And then those 5 to 7 projects turned into more projects and more referrals. And then, within a couple of years, that's when I realized, hey, this is getting a little bit too much for me to handle. And that's when I started bringing some more people on.
And what did that outsourcing look like then? Did you go onto sites like Upwork, or did you just kind of have word of mouth that you were looking for people, or how did you actually find the right people to bring onto your team in that initial phase?
Yeah, so initially I was a part of a couple different mastermind groups on Facebook. So they're like private Facebook groups, and I had invested, and I can talk more about this, but I had invested a lot of my money that I didn't have into these mastermind programs that, we're talking, they were like $5,000-$10,000, and they taught me how to do SEO and all this stuff. And so through there is where I met, I met a few people that, we partnered up and started working together. And then once it got to a point to where I really started to grow and we needed a lot more help, we actually had a lot of success working with this one company. It's called onlinejobs.ph, hiring out of the Philippines. There's a lot of amazing talent in the Philippines. So we really lucked out finding some good talent there by using that platform.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We have some Philippines co-workers as well, and they are the cream of the crop, I'm telling you.
They work their asses off there.
Yeah,
I'm
really,
so impressed with them. Yeah.
So, okay. I know you said that you basically just tuned into your network when you first started, also when you started, building up your client list, but did you have any sort of marketing to get yourself out there as well initially?
Sort of. So, like I said, I used my first contact list, and I really try to create those partnerships with people to send me referrals. But, apart from that, I did pick up some business on, this is going to date me a little bit, I actually got quite a few clients off of Craigslist, which I think Facebook Marketplace is absolutely consumed at this point. I don't even know if Craigslist is still around. But I did pull off some clients there. We found some companies. We actually devised this little marketing campaign to go after companies that were advertising on Groupon at the time. So we would go through and find all the companies that were advertising, then we would cold call them and say, hey, I saw your ad on Groupon and I just wanted to, and then we had this whole thing that we would, basically try to sell them into our package instead of Groupon. We also tried some, I think we landed a couple of clients from that, which was fun. But then we of course tried Upwork and Fiverr, but on some of those freelancer type networks, we definitely ended up realizing that as Americans, it's very hard to really price your stuff where you need to in order to win a project. In my experience, most of the people on Upwork and some of those marketplaces tend to, the people looking to hire, they're usually looking to hire very cheaply. And often, like, the businesses that are really legitimate aren't, in my opinion, often looking there. So really, I think like the marketing, when you're just getting going, I really think that it often needs to kind of be like that. Try to form those strategic partnerships with people that you know.
Sure, exactly. Okay, so 428 Marketing started by operating as a remote-based agency until recently, of course. When you switched back to an in-house model, what led to this change, and what works better, would you say, for an established business like 428?
So this one, I'm very passionate about this, just because, I think that, so COVID, okay. So the biggest thing that has led us back into getting into the office was really just the fact that we had grown to a point to where communication had become a pretty big bottleneck for us. You think that, okay, we can work remotely, not a big deal. We'll use Slack and we'll communicate through there. But, we had got to a point to where there were so many moving parts on all of these different clients and all these different projects. And it's like, one of my guys could have literally a 2-second question asking one of my other teammates. And that 2-second question would take like 10 minutes to respond. And you're like, okay, well, that's not a big deal. But when you think about the amount of times that happens in a day, the communication just really became a bottleneck for us. And now that we're in the office, I mean, my managing director is literally right next to me on the other side of this wall right here. So it's so we can work so quickly now, and it's sped us up a lot on a lot of projects. So the other thing about getting back into the office, so I believe that COVID had created this very false sense of security for employers. And I think that I still to this day, and I see more and more companies going back to the office, and I know exactly why. As an employer, I think we all thought that, we can do this whole remote work situation, and we no longer need an office. We don't have to see each other anymore. But the thing that I think we all, as an employer, thought is, well, people are doing their jobs. I'm doing my job. I'm working, my 8 or 9 hours a day. But being at home for a lot of people it becomes an environment thing. Very few people actually have the discipline to be able to productively work inside of a home atmosphere. You got laundry, dishes, spouses, kids. There's so many potential distractions. And it's hilarious. So many, we have clients even that will take they'll be working from home that day and their kids are just screaming in the background. I'm just like, oh, this is so fun. So for some people, I think that remote work is great. And I really do think that, as like a freelancer, as someone that is maybe, working with just 1 or 2 other people, you can get away with remote work. It can be amazing. But as you really start to grow and become like a much bigger agency, I think that working remotely kind of can become this situation where you give an excuse to employees to be lazy and distracted. And worse, I think it can breed a lot of dishonesty. I've heard so many people now that work from home and spend half their day watching Netflix, and I've heard of people now that are like, they only work 2 or 3 hours a day for one job, and they take a second job, and their employers don't know they're working 2 jobs. And anyway, so there's just lots going on in today's culture that I'm like, I want no part of that. So I was like, we're getting back into the office. And the last thing that I'll say about it is, one of the things that I really, as I started to grow the agency, I wanted to be this digital nomad, work from the beaches in Bali and do all this stuff and just be by myself and work. It was like, I did that. It was cool. But what I really longed for was this sense of camaraderie, this idea of having work culture. I miss the face-to-face contact. I really wanted, I've gotten to a point now just over the last, 6 months or so where it's like, I really want to build a work culture where people can have this amazing place to work, where they can thrive, they can build amazing relationships. So anyway, so far, our experiment, our little office experiment it's worked really well, and it's really improved our productivity and our focus.
That's absolutely amazing. I have to say, I work remotely as well. And yeah, I mean, it is a bit harder to try and find time to really build relationships with your colleagues as well. Yeah. I think that's a really important part of working together with someone, for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, in terms of that, right? I mean, moving your office from being remote to in an office and all of that, what would you say was the biggest challenge for you in scaling your business, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, good question. So I think that the biggest challenge that we have faced to this day is actually probably really more in fulfillment. So, when you're small, like when I was a freelancer and I did all the work myself, I knew what kind of quality I was producing. I was able to give all of my attention to just those few clients, and I was 100% in on being able to make sure that they were super happy and that they would get a huge bang for their buck.
Mhm.
But as you grow, you obviously can't do it all yourself. So you have to bring help and skill and talent in. And, you know, as you grow especially in digital marketing, I think finding skilled people that can fulfill in the same way that you need is pretty hard to find. And you can find a lot of people in the world that know how to do digital marketing, but few actually know how to do it really well. And I think it's really easy that digital marketing is this interesting phenomenon where it creates this false sense of skill, where just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you know how to do it well. For
Yeah.
example, I can teach anyone to build a Facebook ad account and a Facebook ad. You can learn all how to do that in a day. And you're like, oh, I'm a digital marketer. And what you quickly realize is there's a big difference between building a campaign versus building a campaign that's actually going to convert traffic and actually earn revenue for your clients. So I think that, I think that to summarize that answer is just, I think fulfillment has been the hardest thing for us. And really what that comes down to is just, I guess, almost more of an HR thing of finding and hiring the right people, and finding the best talent. Because, as you grow, as you scale, the mark of a good agency is being able to still produce at a high level. And we're constantly trying to make sure that we're always producing the highest quality product for our clients.
Of course it should be. So, okay, how do you have any procedures or processes in place, or criteria rather, actually, let me say, for finding the talented people, that you're talking about now? What do you look for?
And so what I like to do when I'm hiring is I like to come up with the job description, the job responsibilities, and the expectations. And the last thing that I come up with is a how to win list. So I believe that when you come up with a very specified list of things that you're looking for or that you need in that position, it becomes pretty clear on who and what you're looking for. So those qualities become very clear. Like some of the ones that I very much look for, it depends on the position, of course, but I'm always looking for people that are genuinely fun to be around. I know that sounds like a wild thing. Oh, don't you want the most talented people? Don't you want the people who have the most experience here? It's like, well, yes, but that's actually not the first thing that I look for. The first thing that I look for is are you a fun person to be around? And fun meaning respectful, honest, just a genuine, kind-hearted person. As you're building a team of people, you've got to have the right people on the bus. And exactly, you got to you're doing life with them, really. So that's become a lot more like when I'm looking for people to hire, it's the first thing that I look for. So we actually don't jump into an interview right away with the people that we hire. We usually always do like a little bit of we'll call like a coffee chat or something, 15 to 20 minutes. I'm simply just trying to get their vibe. I'm just trying to get their energy. Do we flow? Do we like each other? Do we click? And once that, I learn pretty quickly whether or not it's going to work, then I'll set up an actual full-on interview with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is one of the best pieces of advice that I can give. Is so many people work with, oh, well, this person's really good at what they do, and there's balance, of course. Like for example, the Google Ads, Facebook Ads, media buyer type people. Well, I love who we have, but if I didn't love them, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal because they're not like in and around every single day. So I would maybe sacrifice a little bit on that relationship and be okay with having someone that's really highly skilled, maybe not as good on the relationship side. But so it depends on the position.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, so just getting more into managing an agency, and more particularly managing remote teams. I mean, I know you guys switched over to in-house now, but just to get back to, people that are starting out and wanting to manage a remote team, or, growing a business and ensuring client satisfaction are all obviously crucial aspects of running an agency. So how do you effectively juggle those responsibilities?
So I would say two things, delegation and trust.
Okay.
You cannot do everything yourself. And perhaps one of the best lessons I've learned and am still learning is how to let go and trust the people that you've hired to complete the work that you've hired them to do. I'm not perfect at this, and it's something that I think any agency owner will probably relate to some degree, but it's like, you start out, I have very high standards. Anyone that works for me knows that I'd say the biggest struggle that I've had as an agency owner really has been that I have a very, very high standard, and I demand everyone around me to be high performing. And that's got us into some issues with some hires that we've had, because people just kind of want to skate by and they want to have the status quo. And it's like, I'm like, we're going. And they just don't want to run as fast. And, but anyway, that's, it comes down to making sure you find the people that you jive well with. But, with those high standards, it does come to a place where there's got to be balance. And, I'm not perfect when I do this, but, it's, you have to let the people do their work, and it might not be exactly how you want it done. And sometimes I still probably butt into projects when I shouldn't, but if you have the right people on the bus and you've hired correctly, you should be able to a certain extent, be able to sit back and relax and know that the work is at least going to get done at a high quality that you can live with. Additionally, I think that you've got to stay really organized. And I think that if you're not naturally an organized person, you got to find someone that can keep you organized. One of the things that I will say is I'm a huge proponent of the Strength Finders test. I believe this is, it's by Gallup. Have you ever taken this one?
No, but I'd be interested to.
It's amazing. So it teaches you what you're best at and what you're worst at. I hear so often people will say, "Oh, I want to get better at the things I'm not good at," and I'm like, no, screw what you're not good at. All right, just let it go. You're not wired that way. Lean into what you're best at and become an expert in those things, and then hire and delegate the things that you're not good at. When I first took the Strength Finders test, I was actually working with a mentor at the time. And so I took the Strength Finders test, and he saw my results. The first question he asked me, he said, "Do you start a lot of books that you don't finish?" I was like, "It's a weird question." I was like, yeah, actually I do." He's like, "Okay, so let me explain why." And he proceeds to tell me that, so I scored very high in something called an activator. And activators are people that are really more idea driven, and they're very quick. So activators are usually not very risk averse. They love to take the risk. They love to jump, and they love to go try things. So they activate, they start things. Sure. But a lot of times they're not very good at finishing them. And so what I learned about myself through the Strength Finders is I need to find people that are not activators, but actually forget the name of the opposite of it. But I need to find people who are finishers. And finishers need activators need finishers, and the two go together. And the Strength Finders was one of the best exams I ever took to really not just know my own skills, but to really develop the mindset of, you know what, I'm really not great at this. And it's also being self-reflecting enough to know, okay, I'm not very good at this, and I'm probably not going to get any that much better no matter how hard I try. Let me just find someone that is good at this.
I do have to say, I agree. A lot of people try to focus on the things they're not necessarily good at because they're trying to get good at it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really just, I don't want to say a waste, because I don't think it's ever a waste to learn anything, but I think it's kind of putting the talents that you have at a disadvantage because you're kind of wasting your resources on something else, Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. It's almost like this opportunity cost thing. When you spend time on the things that you're bad at, it's time you're not spending on the things that you're good at.
So as the owner, right, how do you ensure that these subject matter experts in your team maintain a high level of expertise in areas like SEO or web design? I mean, do you have strategies or practices to encourage that continuous learning or skill development even, especially because you're so, you want things to be at a very high.
I need high performers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So this starts with when you hire. So I have continuous learning as a part of every job description and responsibility in order to work here. So it's actually written into every employment contract that we have. So they are required as a part of their position to follow the trends and to keep their ear to the ground. And really, I'd say more specifically with SEO and ads, we invest as a company into these different mastermind groups. I mentioned that whenever I first got going, I continuously invest in mastermind groups, which I would say if you're listening to this and you are not in a mastermind group and you're trying to get started, find a mastermind group. These are groups that will teach you, they will create community for you. There's just so many opportunities that are created inside of these mastermind groups of other marketers and other SEOs and website designers. There's tons of them out there. But right now, our mastermind groups, they bring in a lot of industry experts. So they'll bring in the high level SEOs, they'll bring in the ads people that are experiencing a lot of success. And I watch the courses, I pass those courses on. I will literally give my login information to my employees and they'll start going through those courses. This industry never stops evolving. If you think you've figured it out, you've already lost. Yeah. SEO, I'd say SEO especially. I mean, Google comes up with multiple algorithm updates every single year.
Isn't it?
Every single. I wish things would just stay like 6 years ago. What we were doing for SEO, it was like, this is easy. Like we were just boom, boom, boom. We get websites ranked. Now it's so much more technical. It's more complicated. SEO changes really. I'd say every 4 to 6 months, it drastically changes. And so for us, I mean, we're constantly investing in these mastermind groups and in online courses regularly. And as I say this, as we're doing this, I'm already looking at other. We're getting ready to invest again into kind of that next level SEO course, and because AI is coming and AI is about to shift Google search as we know it. Probably what we're seeing in AI is likely about to change Google search more than I'd say anything since the dawn of the internet, and things are about to change a lot.
But I'll ask you this first because you did mention AI. Does that make you feel excited that it's going to change so much?
I don't know how I feel about it yet. Couple of parts. I'm excited. I'm nervously excited, I guess, would be the best way. So I think that AI is for our industry. Not only is it going to speed us up in a lot of ways and be able to make us more productive, but I actually think that it's going to create a thing where I think a lot of small businesses, which is who we cater to, I think it's going to make SEO and a lot of digital marketing almost too complicated to work with for a while. AI is they're going to be like, oh my gosh, think of like the dawn of the internet when, you had your 50, 60-year-olds that, internet came along. They didn't adapt. You're like, this stupid internet thing, it's a fad. I don't want anything to do with it. So they got passed up. And as AI is going to enter, I think that you're going to find a lot of businesses that don't really care to invest in their marketing. They don't care to, and they're going to get left behind because SEO is about to get a whole lot more. If we think it's technical now, it's about to get even more technical. And so I think it's going to create a lot of opportunity for SEO agencies and digital marketing agencies to, as long as you become an AI expert, to actually go and win for those clients. But I say nervously, because I do think that the scary backside of this is that I don't know how long it will take, but the industry will likely come far enough to where there might be a lot that we do that does become obsolete that AI will replace. And so there's like kind of a 1-2 punch here, that good and the bad, but we'll adapt. We always have and we always will.
And then also just going back to what you said previously, you said that you require your team members to really, really keep up with all of the trends. How would you say the best way is for businesses such as yours or even freelancers to really keep an eye on trends? Like, where can they look? Is it through doing classes such as those or joining groups like those? Or is there any other way that they can do that?
So my personal favorite way is actually through newsletters.
Okay.
So one of the ways that I personally stay the most informed, I really liked a little plug for Stacked Marketer. I'm a big fan of their newsletter. They share a lot of valuable information. And I think every digital marketing agency owner should be a subscriber for Stacked Marketer. And then I subscribe to a few other newsletters. I think, following stuff on Twitter, just there's a few different accounts that you can follow. Just following Google themselves, like their actual Google accounts that are releasing specific algorithm updates. And I think the best way to stay informed is probably those newsletters, and then social media, making sure you're following some of those leaders in the industry.
Amazing. Yeah, that's actually really good advice. So, okay, as 428 marketing has evolved, how would you say has your approach to client relationships changed? Like, were there any valuable lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the biggest change is really the speed and the pressure that we now feel to really perform right out of the gate. And really the speed in which we have to try and really build rapport and relationship with a client. I think as you grow an agency and you start reaching more and more clients that you don't have a prior relationship with, it can quickly become just a transactional relationship. And then it just becomes all about performance. And if you don't perform right out of the gate, you'll get dropped. So I think one of the keys is, obviously set proper expectations during the sales process, and only sign the right clients. I think that, working with the wrong kind of clients can get you in some hot water. Definitely don't just take everything that comes your way. But still, I think there's a part where, where you don't have a personal relationship to lean on, and, they're paying you to make them more money. And if you don't do that in the allotted runway that you, like, usually about 3 to 4 months, you lose. So I think, to answer your question, I think a big part of what's changed for us over the years really is we've had to focus a lot more on our onboarding process and really how quickly we can capitalize on small wins for our clients. So I'd say maybe another valuable lesson I've learned along the way is actually to let clients leave if they want. I do not understand the agencies, and I'm just going to say this: do not be the agency that locks clients into contracts. It's bad for the industry. It drives me nuts. So this is the way I like to think about it. If you were dating someone and they desperately wanted to leave you, yet you somehow put chains around them to keep them, is that a healthy relationship? No. Like, you want to you want to be with someone that wants to be with you. A healthy relationship is a partnership, and it's based on teamwork, communication, honesty, and it's not really one that's built on a long-term contract. Now, I am not saying don't have contracts. You absolutely need to have contracts, but what I am saying is don't have long, restrictive contracts. We only do month-to-month contracts. I believe that this is good for both parties because, if here's the thing is if they want to leave, they can leave. And then for us, it lights a fire under our team. So if we know that we're month to month, we have a runway that we have to perform. And it lights a fire under us to make sure that we perform. And we even do that in our sales process. We say, hey, we do month to month. We do that because we want to make sure that we stay honest. If you don't like us, if we're not performing, fire us. And we're not going to do anything. We do everything transparently. We make sure that our clients always own their own websites. We make sure they have their own hosting platforms. We make sure literally they can cut us immediately, and we don't ever ask for super admin access. We're always, it's something that I'm very specific and particular on, to make sure that our clients can cut us at any point. I really set us up for failure in a lot of ways, but what that does is it builds trust with the client. And we've had an amazing opportunity over the last few years to build some really strong, amazing relationships with clients, because, we are very honest, and we, hey, if we're not performing, fire us. And we try to be very transparent and honest with them. And that really builds a lot of rapport with our clients.
Exactly. So would you say that something like that really helps you to turn your existing clients into brand advocates?
Yeah, I would say, of course, performing is the number one best way to create a brand advocate. Performance is key, and then obviously turning them into having a really good, solid relationship is also something that will really help create brand advocacy. But in terms of a strategy to really get them to maybe share or give you a referral, this sounds pretty simple and pretty dumb, but really, just I would say that the best way to do it is just ask. You certainly have to have the good relationship in place. You got to make sure that you've performed for them, but really, you should feel like you're at a place where you're confident to be able to ask them for a referral. And in my opinion, the process should look like this. You should first ask through either a phone conversation or an in-person conversation. I do not suggest sending them a text and say, hey, will you refer me? Or send them an email and say, hey, will you no. Start with a phone conversation first that, kind of says like, hey, you want to basically talk about and ask them how their experience has been, get them to a place to where you're kind of warming them up to where they're like, yeah, you guys really have done well for us. Like, remind them of all of the things that you've done, and how they've succeeded and how you've succeeded. And then now they're like, wow. And then you ask. So once you've kind of warmed them up a little bit, and I don't want that to sound manipulative in any way, you're almost just like bringing a reminder to them of the experience that they have had. So then you ask for hey, would you be willing to, do you know anyone that could benefit from the same experience that you've had? And just be quiet, let them, yeah, I think I have. I actually do. One of my buddies owns a business that does this, and this. I'd be more than happy to refer you. Okay, great. And then try to get their information. But then what I always like to do is I like to send a follow-up email afterwards. And here's, in my opinion, the kicker is when you ask someone for a referral, what you have to do is be willing to send them the exact message that they can send to their contacts. Don't ask them to write up some email or a message to their contact. Write it for them. We have this little template that we'll send off to that basically says, hey, I'm working with this company, and they've done really well for us, and I would think that you could benefit too, and yada, yada, yada. And they just literally copy and paste and send it. It makes it so much easier for them. Don't make it a burden on your contacts to share or to refer you in.
Exactly. I really like that. And then you also get to say exactly what it is that you want to say. In that
exactly. Well, that's the part of the little bit of a control freak right here. So I don't know what they're gonna say, but I want to control what they say. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a 1-2 punch there.
Well, I think it's a good thing in any case. I think you get to then hit all the points that you really want to, and again, you're also helping them help you at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So okay, I know when talking about clients, especially in a remote setting, it can be really hard to try and pick up on their nonverbal cues or body language, during discussions especially. So how do you ensure in that instance that your client's needs and goals are accurately conveyed in that remote setting?
yeah, the remote work creates, in the same way that it's difficult for um, us as a team, it can obviously be difficult. I love this question because it can create we live in a remote based world now. Here's what I think. Setting the climate by being transparent and honest first is really where this starts. Like, as an agency, you have to be the one to set that standard, set that foundation. And I think that over communication actually becomes a pretty important too as well. So, not to the sense that you're annoying your client, but you do want to try and communicate as much as possible. They're paying for a service, and a lot of times they're paying a lot of money for that service. And one of the worst things that an agency can ever do is to go dark, like to just not communicate, to for us, our average clients are, can be $2, $3, $4, $5,000 a month. And when a small business is paying that kind of money and they don't hear from you for 2 or 3 weeks, it's bad. So, as an agency, you've got to communicate. And sometimes I think over communicating is good, especially if it's done through email. Don't annoy them through text or phone calls, but in an email, they can easily just open it, not read it, but at least they know that they're still getting something from you.
Yeah.
But I think that being honest and transparent the entire way through gives you the freedom to be able to ask them to be upfront and honest as well. Because I love this question, because in my experience, you often will find clients that are very reluctant to share their what they actually think and feel. So when you set the standard, when you create the foundation of honesty, transparency, you then have the right to ask pointed questions, and you're setting that safe environment. And again, I'll take this back to I got one of my team members that this drives him nuts, but I always kind of relate a lot of the sales and marketing stuff to dating and marriage. And I think that, imagine like you're dealing with your spouse or a significant other, and you obviously you need to create that atmosphere where they feel safe and vulnerable to be able to share their feelings. Otherwise, you don't really have that good intimate connection. So with a client, it's like, what kind of environment would you create with them? What kind of energy would you have if you wanted that kind of good, deep, intimate client relationship? You've got to create that. And I'd say way too many people try to make business just business. It's all, it's just business. Like, no, that's not how I see it. Business is all about people. Even though the more remote that we get, we will never stop being human. And people consistently try to push this agenda that they can just sit behind a closed door and they can make millions of dollars and never have to talk to a person. Maybe if you're like a high-end developer, you can do that. But for the rest of us, business is about people. It's about relationships and helping the client feel safe and vulnerable with you is, in my opinion, the absolute number one best way to understand a true client's needs. Because most of them are gonna hide that. They're gonna tell you a client might be scared because their kid is getting ready to go to college next year. Well, you don't know that unless you have a good relationship with them and actually talking about their kids. And sometimes they won't reveal that to you unless you really build that. So I think that you really have to create the environment for them to feel safe to talk. That's the best way to really get those nonverbal cues that you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes with a remote setting. You've got to kind of become that. See yourself as a counselor, as a coach. Like I tell my sales guys, like, feel.
Okay, so basically it's about getting to know them on a deeper level so that you can read them better.
Absolutely.
And I think, especially if you do all of that and you really build a relationship with someone, it really is about just human to human understanding, I think, and relation, in that sense that you can build that relationship with them and you'll always find them coming back at the end of the day, which is a win-win situation because you're getting to build a great relationship with someone and you can have your client come back as well.
I mean, it's just so much more fun. Well, it's so much more fun to have a relationship with someone. Like, we are all innately created to be in communion and community with each other. So when you find a way to make your business about that, everything else works. And it's just more fun and fulfilling too.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, we at DesignRush host a complete directory of digital marketing agencies around the globe. I'm not sure if you knew that, but what would you say are some of the major benefits of outsourcing an agency like yours?
Yeah, so we actually use this in our sales process. So I'd say the biggest benefit, and I say I use this in sales, but it's like, man, it's because it makes sense. The biggest benefit a small business can get by outsourcing to an agency is that you get an entire army of experts for the price usually of about one employee. And if you own your own in-house marketing team and you hire them, you're probably looking at $300 to $500K a year for a small business. That's the salary of maybe 4 to 5 people. You've got to pay W-2 taxes. You've got benefits. You've got just little things that you don't even think of if you're in an office environment, like utilities, and now you got to have the space for these people. It becomes very expensive. But by outsourcing, you get an entire marketing department, often for a fraction of that cost. And not only are you saving money, but you're getting access to the best of the best of the best. I mean, in my agency, this is what we do day in and day out, and we are constantly we are only as good as our skill. And if we don't evolve and stay with it, we lose our company. So by outsourcing to an agency, you're getting the best. You don't have to worry about, is my employee getting lazy? Are they keeping up with the trends? Those types of things you might not even know. But by outsourcing to an agency, you're going to know pretty quick, because they have to. They got to evolve or die. So I'd say very simply, biggest reason is to outsource marketing is save money, and then you're also going to get access to the best skill.
Four28 Marketing was recently known as Segalo Media. Okay,
yep.
And you guys rebranded from that.
Yep.
So can you tell us why you thought it was time for Segalo to experience a brand refresh, and why Four28 Marketing?
And so a couple reasons, really. One is the business has grown quite a bit, and I have, at some point in the future, I will likely sell the agency. And when my name is on it, it becomes a lot harder to sell. So having a name on an agency, data shows that you usually get a much lower multiple, mostly for the fact that if your name's on it, a potential buyer automatically assumes that you're likely way too involved in the business, and that when you sell it, all those clients that you had likely came for you and not the business. So yeah, changing the name, getting my name off of it, I got to get myself out of the picture. So the second reason is, it's kind of a dumb one, but my last name, Segalo, it tends to be mispronounced a lot, and it drives me nuts. So I just got tired of people saying, all whatever names. It was funny. I was actually interviewing someone. This was maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
I was interviewing someone. We're like probably second or third interview, and they say the name of the business completely wrong. And I'm like, okay, you're about to start potentially working here, and you can't even get the name right. So that was definitely, I was like, okay, I need to definitely change the name. So fast forward, came up with the name, Four28 Marketing. So this is actually based on a Bible verse, Mark 4:28. So it's a parable where Jesus is teaching on the how a seed grows. So it basically explains that a seed doesn't just grow overnight; it grows through a process. And the underpinnings of this for where we're going as an organization, and why I wanted this to be the name, is marketing in general is not a flash in the pan kind of a thing. Healthy companies pursue marketing and understand marketing as a process. And it's something that you implement. Step one leads to step 2, 3. There might be 35 steps in your marketing plan that eventually leads you to success. But we live in this instant gratification kind of culture where people are just like, oh, I want success now, and where are my leads, and yada yada. You got companies like Home Advisor and that which I guess it's Angie now, but they create this like small business contractor mentality where they just want leads now, and it's instant gratification. Well, 428 it cuts through all of that, and it creates this very, very calm. Okay, it's like fine wine. It takes time to mature. Everything that's worth having takes time to mature. A garden, you don't just plant the seed and you've got fruit tomorrow. It takes a whole season, sometimes 2 or 3 years even, to really grow a very healthy garden. So that's really the approach that we're going as an organization.
Okay, I really like that. That's a beautiful meaning behind that name. Really, it is. So, okay, Danny, I know of a lot of people who dream of starting their own remote design agency, or any agency really, that can work in marketing or digital marketing or anything like that. So what would you say their process should be from the right beginning? I mean, for people that haven't gotten anything done yet, they're square one, to achieve what you've been able to achieve. Do you have any advice for them?
Yes, I've got a lot. So I'd say that we'll start with this. If you're starting your agency, you've got to become an expert in something. So I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make in trying to get their business off the ground, their agency off the ground, is they want to try to specialize in everything all at once. They want to do ads. They want to do Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO, web design. They want to do all these things all at once. Don't do that. Focus on one thing and become an expert in that. Conquer your mountaintop. Because if you don't conquer your mountaintop first, then this becomes something that you spread yourself way too thin, and you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it's not a good idea to go after just a ton of stuff right out of the gate. Because I don't care who you are, you're just not good at it all. So when you're first starting, become an expert in one thing. The other thing that I think happens when you try to spread yourself too thin like that is you'll start trying to, okay, well, you might be like, oh, well, I don't know how to do SEO, so I'm going to go hire someone that knows how to do it. I don't know how to do Facebook ads, so I'm going to hire someone that knows how to do it. Well, when you're starting out, you don't know who you're looking for and what you're looking for. Anyone can fool you. Anyway, become an expert first, and that will enable you to really know what you're looking for. The second thing I would say is, and this is very contrary to what a lot of people probably want to hear that might be getting started in the industry, but you've got to be willing to work for really cheap. Even if you have to keep a second job to start out, you have to build up your portfolio. People just won't take you seriously until you've got past experience and past work to really show. And having 1 or 2 projects, on your belt is definitely not enough at all. It's not enough to showcase that you're actually legit. Going back to I built my first website for $200. Obviously this is the path that I took, but I'm in these mastermind groups, and I will say that is, some of these mastermind groups, there's a lot of us that are, 6, 7, sometimes even 8-figure earners. And it's where we all started. We all started out working that really cheap first few projects, and you've got to start that way. Be willing to be humble and really take that lesser rate to build up your portfolio. Sure. I'd say another piece of advice that I would give is definitely take that Strength Finders test. Figure out what you're good at, how you're wired, and one of the mistakes that I fell into, and I see a lot of people fall into, is that, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, I'm a boss man CEO, and more often than not, I think when we start out, we think leadership is about domineering. It's about being decisive and dominating your employees and telling them what to do. You go here, you go there. And what you realize is that true leadership it's all about servanthood. It's about coming underneath to support. It's humility. It's serving someone. It's being really like, you have to be truly focused on helping them fly. And I think that the Strength Finders test can really help you reveal what parts of leadership that you really excel in, and then also can help show you eventually you're going to need a number two as you begin that agency and you start creating that. Find what you're really good at, focus on that, and then as that agency grows, you're going to need a number two, whether you're starting the agency with someone or you eventually add someone. I've taken enough tests to know that my skill set is really more in, I'm more of an activator. I'm a big idea. I'm more of what you would label as like a visionary. Not, I say that very humbly. That's just like, I don't want to, I'm a visionary. Like, no, there's a couple of tests. There's a book called Traction that I highly recommend reading. It goes over and talks about some of the stuff. You take a little test that shows you whether you're what's called a visionary or an integrator. Well, I realized, I'm more of that visionary, and I can do the day-to-day type stuff, the systems, the processes, the integration of all that stuff. I can do that, and I can do it at a decently high level, but it just drains my soul. It's like doing meetings every day, one-on-ones, and doing all these things. It just drains my soul. And these tests really helped me realize that, I need an integrator. And so, come in, about a year and a half ago, I hired a guy. He's now become my COO, my managing director, and he's someone that I can have all the ideas, the strategies. Hey, this is where we're going. But having someone that can go and take that and integrate that and make it happen and execute, it's key. 100%. So I know this is like a very long. Last thing I'll say, I know that we probably get going here, but the last thing I will say is that as you're getting started in digital marketing, check your heart, why are you in the field, and really understand your why. Are you here because you want to have this cushy remote job so you can work from anywhere? You can do that remote work and be on the beaches of Bali and do your work. And I think that the why is really important. Are you trying to do that, or are you actually in the business to try to help small businesses make more money? Ultimately, marketing is about one thing: increasing revenues for your clients. And to me, like, that's all I really care about. The thing that keeps me up at night is, are we making enough money for our clients? And you got to be in this business, you got to be in this field for the right reasons. You can do the cushy remote job for a little while, cool, whatever, but you'll eventually fizzle out because you just, it sounds cool. I've done it. I've worked on beaches. I've been in the coffee shops in other countries. I've traveled all around the world doing, like, it's cool, but it's very unfulfilling. And you have to love what you do while you do it, and ultimately just, you've got to find that why. My why is I want to make money for my clients, and so I think that for anyone listening to this, if you're trying to get started in this, really develop your why, and that'll really help get you through some of those hard times too.
Exactly. It also might keep your eye on the goal, right, at the end of the day.
Yes. Exactly.
Daniel, thank you so much. This has been an incredibly insightful conversation, I have to say. Really, I enjoyed it immensely. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really.
Me too, Bianca. I had a good time. Thank you for having me. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Daniel. Let's keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, bye. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're looking for the right digital agency for your business, head over to designrush.com/marketplace. Our marketplace offers a wide range of vetted agencies that can provide you with the solutions you need to achieve your goals. Again, I'm your host, Bianca Mayer. Stay curious and see you in the next episode.